The Chinese government has had a shifting narrative on where the organs are coming from for organ sourcing. And they originally said it was donations, but they didn't have a donation system. So that
I've been nation states which are sovereign on their own, and then democratic nations to start with, when they are trying to, and then people who are normal voters, normal people, they go on streets to protest against either whether it's a anti-Semitism rally or a pro-Palestinian rally. How can nation states put an inquiry on or talk about human rights in different country or different legislation, different jurisdictions, and if they create, for example, if you create an inquiry on, whether are we support pro-Palestine, are we pro-Israel, how does that impact for a nation state, which is independent then to those two countries which they are having war? How does that link, or any inquiry on, for example, atrocities in China, here, will that change the behavior of the Communist Party?
Well,
and is there any past? Have you seen any evidence that nation states which are independent of where the atrocities are happening, on their own they are speaking about human rights globally on a global stage? But how does that impact the Russia and Ukraine example? People were talking about things, and how do you see that pressure?
Well, I mean, to a certain extent, that question is country specific because the dynamics of each country is different. But I mentioned to you before, I mean, with China, you got this power struggles within the party, which basically revolve around the issue of not what's in the public interest, but what's in the party interest. What I'm dealing with specifically is the mass killing of prisoners of conscience, particularly Falun Gong, for their organs. And I've been on this file now for 19 years, and what I see is, I mean, the party is always reacting to this in a way with that focus in mind, what works for the party. And so, and within China itself, they can control. And in fact, as a result of that, what's said outside matters more to them than what's said inside, because inside they basically able to shut everything down, but they can't shut everything down outside. And that's why transnational repression has become so important for them. Ultimately, you can change the equation of what's good for the party by changing what's happening outside. I mean, if they get enough pushback outside, they will change because, I mean, ultimately, what the party's concerned about is not the killing of Falun Gong for their organs or the health or the cost of the health system. They're concerned about keeping the country under the control of the Communist Party, and they'll shift on almost anything where that shift works to the benefit of keeping the party in control of the country. So what I've seen, for instance, in terms of organ harvesting is, at one time, the Chinese government has had a shifting narrative on where the organs are coming from for organ sourcing. And they originally said it was donations, but they didn't have a donation system, so that was implausible. And so then they shifted to say everything was coming from prisoners sentenced to death and then executed who donated their organs to atone for their crimes before they were executed, which generated a tremendous pushback from the global transplantation profession, who said prisoner donations are not voluntary. And then the Chinese surgeons were not being allowed to go to a transplant conference in San Francisco in 2014. 35 of them were excluded, and then the foreigners weren't invited to a Chinese transplant conference in Hangzhou in 2014. So the Chinese changed the narrative back again in the end of 2014, saying starting 2015 only prisoners. Only donations, which was their original narrative. And by then they'd set up a donation system which generates tiny numbers. But the point is that you could see them moving as a result of international pressure. I mean, a lot of it is cosmetic, but it is movement. And frankly, I mean, at some point, if cosmetic doesn't work. I can see them ending forced organ harvesting if basically the political cost to them from forced organ harvesting is more than the benefit they get from it.